Hello and welcome back to the iGP Manager AOR League. This week we're in Belgium for the 12th round of this first season. My name is Justin Sutton, and joining me this week, it's actually my F1 esports broadcast partner. It's Chris Buxton.
Hello everybody, glad to be back alongside you, lovely American Justin, the star of the Lone Star State. And we are here at a very rain-soaked Spa. Now, it's been a while since I've had the pleasure of commentating alongside you for the iGP League. So the championship has really kind of swung towards Peter Mann's favor, but wet conditions, we will see.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, before we get into the conditions, let's quickly just look. We don't have much time, so we're just going to quickly look at the championship standings. As Chris said, it is Peter Mann who is starting to walk away with it. 38 points, still have 6 races remaining in this season, including this one, though. So still plenty of opportunities for the rest of the drivers to try and catch back up to him. So it's not over and done with just yet, but this is about as big of a gap. I think the biggest gap we've actually seen in the championship standings so far. Also, Valentin Cordier moving up to 8th position with his second place finish last time out in the European round of this championship. So really moving up in the world. Nicolas Navarro, aka Cesar Navarro, also moving up in the championship as well, overtaking Nicolas Morales. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how things are looking for today's race. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit further, even more here. As you can see, it is raining here in Belgium, and it's not slowing down. And if anything, actually, it's getting wetter and wetter. I think it was about 1.8 millimeters of water when I first joined the server. It's now up to 2 millimeters of water. We have 15 cars starting on the intermediate tires. Championship leader Peter Mann got pole position during qualifying, and he did that on intermediate tires. However, Nicholas Pressey on the full wet, starting from last position, but arguably with a fantastic opportunity here for sure. We've only got about 40 seconds before we get racing here, Chris. However, with these conditions, I think Pressey could be in for a good result here.
Also, the track temperature is pretty cold, so it's not going to dry at any particular rate. Mm-hmm. And the rain, because they haven't gotten underway yet, the best way to clear rain off of a track is to send a lot of F1 cars around it. Of course, it's exactly what these are modeled on, so that rain will continue to build. Pressey doing the contra strategy, going for the full wet tires. You never know, stranger things have happened.
There we go.
here in Spa in the wet.
The lights are coming on, and we will get answers to these questions. Again, it is Peter Mann on pole position. His nearest rival, Cesar Navarro, a.k.a. Nicolas Navarro, right behind him in second position. But it's actually Carrasco overtaking his compatriot Felix Cabanes for third position. That's the only major movement in the top 5. Nicholas Coleman as well making a move. Morales now the next to overtake Felix Cabanes. He moves himself up into fourth position. Morales third in the championship standings, so that's a great start for him. But I have to say Peter Mann and Cesar Navarro are kind of walking away with it at the moment. That's the biggest gap I'm seeing currently, is actually between Navarro and Carrasco. So the leading pair in the championship are the leading pair at the start of this race, Chris.
Like you say, Navarro pulling away from Carrasco a little bit at the moment, but those that may be less familiar with iGP Manager, this isn't about moves, this isn't about bravery on the brakes, anything like that. This is purely about strategy and timing. Now, at this stage in the season, a lot of it comes down to what upgrades and research and development has gone on the car and the team and what have you leading up to this point. However, as Valentin Cordier managed to get a very stunning second position last time out, it is not done and dusted by any stretch. Nothing is ever decided until that checkered flag falls. They can. It's all down to how well everything is managed. So whilst they may not be having to worry too much about positioning or blocking or any some such, there's still a lot that can go down to our respective managers. And Peter Mann is really getting his guy into his stride. Already a seconds gap between himself and Navarro. Of course, no DRS available in these conditions, unsurprisingly. But a lot of battling going on. So whilst the lead may look like it's a done deal right now, it by no means could be, especially if that rain continues to build. And that rain amount is getting more and more now, 2.2 millimeters. And that could well fall into the hands quite nicely of Nicholas Pressey at the tail of the field. He hasn't dropped back too far either off the back of the field. So bear in mind that he's got that, that particular ace in the hole that may well come his way. It may completely undo itself, but you just never know. Looking further down the field, Nicholas Carrasco down into fifth is right on the tail of Cabanez. So there's a great battle forming there for fourth position. And this the field yet to spread out by any particular degree, really, from fifth right the way down to 14th. So much is yet to be decided. You could easily think, Peter Mann's running off into the distance, job done. No. That's never how this thing works.
Yeah, we don't know the fuel levels, of course. There is refueling, and iGP manager Peter Mann could be much lighter on fuel compared to the likes of Cesar Navarro, and especially in conditions like this, it can be very difficult to know how much to fuel your car for. Because you don't know when the weather is going to change. You don't know when the rain is going to get worse or when the rain is going to stop, and it can be very, very difficult to try and try and fuel your car for the correct amount. Now, Nicholas Pressey is dropping back, but again, he could be fueled quite a bit as we have a change of position actually for sixth place as Nicholas Coleman makes the move on Jose Luis Navarro, moves himself up into sixth. And let me just pull up the sector times actually. Yeah, Pressey is notably slower than everybody else at this stage. Again, could potentially be fuel related as well too. He might know something as far as the weather is concerned that others did not check on. It's now 2.3 millimeters of water on the circuit, and as Chris mentioned earlier as well, it is also rather cool out there. So if it does stop raining, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to dry out very quickly, as we see Valentin Cordier, again, who finished on the podium last time out, moving himself ahead of Jake Thompson for 8th position. So he's already gained one more spot in this race. And just at the very tail end of the points-paying positions, it is still rather tight as well, too. We did see a bit of battling going on earlier between Autosport and Franco Incerralde. Incerralde coming out on top in that one and actually managing to build about a 1.5-second gap. Autosport deploying a bit of boost now. Boost was activated at the start of lap 3, so about 1 lap ago. And it hasn't made a huge difference up at the front, although I am noticing that Cesar Navarro is closer to Peter Mann now. He hasn't deployed any of his boosts, so that is legitimate pace. He was 0.8 of a second quicker than Peter Mann last lap, actually. So maybe he was just holding back on his tires a little bit, and now he's using some of that pace that he had in reserve potentially. But yeah, it is still very close, sort of in the midfield, the lower points-paying positions. You can see lots of cars within 1 second, Chris.
Yep, absolutely. Navarro, no doubt. Cesar Navarro, I should say, no doubt, keeping his eye very much on the prize. And this is where he's just got to keep his head. He cannot afford to kind of push too hard too quickly, and completely compromise his strategy later on. Peter Mann doing a brilliant job, as Justin mentioned, to maintain that momentum that has got him towards a pretty comfortable lead up front. But there's still enough rounds to completely undo that. And the top two, both deploying some boosts, and now Peter Mann, beg your pardon, it was Cesar Navarro that deployed quite a significant chunk of his boost there to try and overhaul Peter Mann. Peter not having any of that whatsoever, and counted him. So that's still that gap remaining at around about a second, just under a second now, as Morales is essentially minding his own business there in third, 4 seconds down. But again, he just has to kind of mind his own business and just keep on doing what he's doing. It's no good pushing too hard too quickly and undoing the strategy you are trying to employ. And again, keeping an eye on the water amount. That water amount is getting higher and higher. So Pressey, whilst now quite a way off the back of the field, could well come good later on, especially if if he's played the fuel right as well, tire change is going to come into it. These inters are not going to hold if the water amount just gets too bad. But the equally pressing may well have burnt the best out of those, these wet tires. We will say, now we've got. That is Navarro coming into the pits already. Is he considering the full wet tires? He seems to be the only one in at the moment. A curious decision. And no, it's another set of inters for Cesar Navarro. That's a curious one. Very curious indeed.
And I think that might be a fuel issue, which is what we were talking about earlier. As I mentioned, it can be very difficult to predict how much fuel you're going to need to try and predict how much fuel is going to take you to that crossover point. And I think he may have just misjudged that, unfortunately. He's probably watching the times from Nicholas Pressey, which have not been really setting the world alight. It's not been super great for Nicholas Pressey. I sort of expected him to be lapping a little bit quicker. Certainly at this stage, after the rain has continued to fall, the water level continued to build up. So Cesar Navarro drops down into 12th position, only narrowly ahead of Autosport after fitting a second set of intermediate tires, stopping at the end of lap 5 in this 22-lap race. It is a shorter race as far as lap count is concerned because, of course, Belgium, such a long circuit, it just goes on and on and on. So fewer laps, however, the laps do take longer to complete. Looking a little bit further up the road, Peter Mann is just making his way into the final chicane now. Are we going to see him peel off into the pits? No, we do not. Any of the other front runners, Nicolas Morales or either of the Spaniards, Cabanes or Carrasco, no, everybody is staying out, so everybody feels that those intermediate tires are still holding on quite well. The last time we had a race with these kinds of conditions, just in case if you missed it, Chris, or if anybody else watching might have missed it, it was a 2-stop race, so 3 stints, as we watch Jake Thompson now make an overtake on Valentin Cordier. Both of them using a lot of boost already, considering we're only not even 1/3 distance into this race, and they both used quite a bit of boost. Jake Thompson using marginally more compared to Valentin Cordier, does now find himself in 6th position as a result of that overtake. Just a reminder, Jake Thompson, one of the 2 teams that has yet to score points so far in this season, the other being Autosport. So both of those teams are going to be looking for points this weekend, especially given these conditions. However, it is looking very good for Peter Mann, our championship leader, up at the front once again. I have to say he's doing very, very well. He has used some boost. Of course, that was when Cesar Navarro was using some boost as well, too. Valentin Cordier running very, very closely to the back of Jake Thompson after Jake made that overtake on the French manager as they make their way down the back straight. And, it looks like we've got Peter Mann pitting from the lead here, Chris.
Indeed. You say probably playing the fuel game, as you mentioned earlier, as it looks like no one else interested in coming to the pits just yet. Let's see where that's going to drop Peter down to. So new leader then is Nicolas Moranes, the Argentine, taking over the lead. Will have 1.9 seconds between himself and Cabanez, and that has dropped Peter Mann down to 8th position. And bearing in mind that Cesar Navarro pitted quite a while ago, it now finds itself down in 12th. That is quite a significant gap. Rough maths, 6 or so seconds behind the person he was previously pestering. So that hasn't gone well for the championship second place man. So we'll see then how this strategy plays out for Peter Mann. Just 0.8 of a second behind the second Navarro. Excuse me. Of Jose Luis Navarro. So we'll see how he can handle that. But now it's going to be interesting to see what Morales does now, inheriting the lead. Because it comes down to that kind of discipline as mentioned earlier. Do they stick with the strategy they were originally deploying, or do they kind of change tack? It's probably not a lot of reason for them to change tack at this point, as Cabanez from second comes in. Now we're seeing a flurry of pit stops. Or are we potentially? Yeah, we've got quite a few people then now coming into the pits. Your new race leader is Carrasco. So, and he hasn't used any boosts either. So a lot of people hanging on to their boost. Quite a few people have used quite a bit of their boost tank already. And I remember seeing quite a lot of the early usage of the boost in Monaco, which really kind of bit those drivers quite hard as the race progressed. But again, these wet conditions may play a bit of a part in that. I wouldn't have thought so. You generally using boost in wet conditions kind of leads to a very tail happy car, but obviously in this situation, not quite the same. Look at where Cesar Navarro is now, right with Morales. Let's see who else is in that particular. So that's Thomas Inceralde. There's a lot of changing going on. I'm trying to read the names, they keep moving. So you got Cesar Morales, Navarro, Inceralde, Thomas in that battle as well. So there's a lot of scrapping going on there, and that's going to tempt a lot of people possibly to use too much boost too quickly. You know, Cesar Navarro is out of boost as well, so that, you know, with quite a significant percentage of the race still to go, that could well bite him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As now Carrasco and Cordier become the next to come into the pits, and it looks like Chandler Seitza is going to stay out, so he could be on for a one-stop strategy, which actually would make sense because we're getting very close to the end of lap 11, which would be the halfway point in this race, and that would be optimal for the one-stop strategy. It is now 2.6 millimeters of water on the circuit, so that's how things are looking at the moment. Autosport staying out there as well, too. They could be another team that's on for a one-stop strategy. They're only narrowly ahead of Carrasco, and Coleman's not that far behind either as well. But and we think basically now the guys that are on one-stops, they'll have the same number of stops to make as the guys that are two-stopping. However, the two-stoppers will be marginally faster. So I think, as is the trend that we've seen from Autosport, they're right there on the precipice of picking up some points. They're in the points hunt at this stage of the race, but they are going to have to, I think, push a little bit harder and just get a little bit further up the road if they want that gap. Because when they come in, if they come in at the end of lap 11, they are going to be very heavy with fuel, and they're going to be losing time compared to the likes of Cabanes and Carrasco and these other guys that we think are on for a two-stop. The likes of Cabanes, I mean, he hasn't used any boost at all, hardly. And indeed, Chandler Seitza does stay out for an 11th lap, as does Daniel Thomas, as does Franco Inceralde, and as does Autosport as well. So that's pretty much confirming that all of these guys are going to attempt a one-stop strategy. But again, that comes down to whether or not the weather will play nicely when it comes to all of that. You know, that's assuming it's going to be Inter's conditions to the end, and we just don't know if that's going to be the case.
Nope, that's the joy of mixed weather conditions. I'm also keeping an eye on Pressy to see if that gap is considerably falling. And at the moment, it's obviously been shuffled around a bit due to the pit stops. He's 8.5 off the back of Fazzolari. But his overall lap times just haven't improved significantly enough to bring him into, unless people start to fall off the road. I think it's going to be very difficult for Pressy to really get back into this race in any kind of significant fashion, as Thompson overhauls Cordier for 11th position. So again, he's chasing the back of that points-paying position. Peterman, as mentioned, getting back into a commanding lead situation. 4.2 separates himself from himself and Morales. Another round of pit stops, it looks like. Oh no, beg your pardon. It's the those that have yet to pit have now decided to give their pit crew something to do. No one looking at the full wets, and I'm really not surprised. Everyone looking at Pressy, I'm sure, for how the full wets are going to do, and they've done pretty badly. Is the honest answer to that. But out they all come. And Peterman then 4.5 ahead still with next to no boost usage. So once again, Peterman just showing that if you get the strategy right, and it's, I won't say becomes easier, but it certainly becomes a much less challenging ordeal for it. As Pressy switches to intermediate, that's not a surprise. Probably should have done that quite a while ago. But in he comes. He's, again, fair play for trying the contra strategy. Sometimes it pays off, but the rain just not being significant enough to make those wets anywhere near a usable option. We will see then as we are over the halfway stage in the race. Peterman, again, enjoying that comfortable lead. And we'll see then how his counterparts how they come about their racing as Thomas gets into the final points paying position from Chandler Seitza, but Chandler still with a full boost tank. Thomas having used quite a lot of it. I think it's going to come down in the closing stage of the race, depending on who's still in a battle. I think a lot of the boost usage strategy is going to come into play, but we will see.
Yep, we will find that out towards the end. I will say people are holding on to their boosts a bit more in this race compared to what we've seen in a lot of the dry races as of recently. So possibly people just holding on to it, hoping to use it after it's dried up, but it does not seem that that's going to happen. The rain is still falling here in Belgium. It is now 2.7 millimeters of water on circuit. Still not quite enough for the full wets to actually be useful. They weren't miles and miles, so there's just a couple of seconds per lap, which around a circuit that's almost 120 seconds to complete is not a massive difference. So we are right on the precipice. 2.8 millimeters now reading here in Belgium. Still no DRS, of course. It would need to dry up pretty considerably for the DRS to get activated, which is a bit of a shame. I'm not going to lie, Chris. I was looking forward to the rather long DRS zone that we have here in Belgium. I was looking forward to the sort of like back and forth battles that we might see as a result of that, but it seems that we are going to be denied that possibility due to the conditions today. I have to say I am very surprised that Nicolas Morales is now in second position. He has used every actually no, he has a little bit of boost still remaining. I only noticed that after switching between himself and Navarro. But it is now almost 6 seconds, the gap between Peter Mann and Nicolas Morales. We are just past the halfway point at this stage of the race. And let's see how things are looking. It's so if you look from 4th down to 8th, for example, it's only about 11 seconds separating those guys. So not a ton of cars within DRS range, if DRS was a thing at this stage of the race. However, still a good amount of cars all within striking distance of one another, and we do expect the two stoppers to be coming in fairly soon here, I think. I have noticed that Cesar Navarro is really closing up to the back of Morales as Peter Mann extends that gap to over 6 seconds now. So we could have a battle for second position in the on the way in the future here as Peter Mann now pits from the lead of the race. And are we going to see anybody else? Yes, we do actually see Cesar Navarro coming into the pits at the end of lap 14 as well. So this will be 8 laps until the end of the race for these guys. Navarro finds his pit stop and refits the intermediate tires once again. So it's another set of intermediates for Peter Mann. It's another set of intermediates for Cesar Navarro. Interestingly here, Peter Mann has come out in a bit of traffic. That is Nicholas Carrasco that's just ahead of Peter Mann. Now, Peter does have a lot of his boost still remaining, but Carrasco does too, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. Peter Mann still in quite a strong position. But if Morales doesn't have to come in again, and only they know their own strategy, we've got no way of knowing their fuel amounts or what have you, etc., etc. So Morales is going to be quite a strong position, but he's got nothing really to defend with, as his boost tank is near as damn it empty. Cabanez looks to be quite strong at this stage with a almost full boost tank. I'm going to be keeping an eye very much on Peter Mann to see how he now can deal with those around him. And again, that rain amount still continuing to grow, but it doesn't seem to have made any... Oh, no, never mind. Cabanez is in the pits, so that brought his strategy to... back down to earth, essentially. I'm assuming Morales, looking at his lap times, will have to come in again. Mm-hmm. But again, we will see. We will see. Navarro is right with Cordier now. Now that the pit stops have really shaken up, and Navarro's just used quite a bit of his boost tank to get to the back of Cordier. Actually, just overhauled Cordier, and they've got almost identical amounts of boost, so that's going to be a real scrap, I think. Along with Peter Mann is in that. Oh, Peter Mann's a few seconds down the road now. Who else has come into the pits? And has Coleman run out of fuel?
Nope. Nope. If he did, it was in the box. So
must have been in the box.
Yeah.
Never mind. That message is still there. So Thomas on the back of Cabanez. That's a battle for 7th. That's quite hot at the moment. Cesar Navarro not too far off the back of Cordier, but is probably lost out due to the boost usage. And then you've got the second Navarro. That is Jose Luis Navarro in 4th with only half a second between himself and Cordier. So, that's Thomas losing a spot at 7th position, going to Cabanez after Felix has just essentially dumped a lot of his boost, and Morales is in. So there went the thought of him just doing a one-stop. Oh, they're going to come out quite close, are they? Oh, that's not far off between Morales and Peterman, but Morales with no boost whatsoever to use, and Peterman with a complete full tank. So still, yet again, the pendulum is in his favor.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, you're exactly right about that. They did come out very close together, which is very much of a tease for us spectators because we think we might be on for a bit of a scrap here. But as you said, Peterman with tons and tons of boosts still available. Nicholas Morales with absolutely none. I'm not going to rule him out just yet, but let's just remind ourselves of what the strategies have looked like. Valentin Cordier did 9 laps on that first set of intermediates. I would say he could probably do a 13-lap stint on a set of intermediates and just go to the end. He could be on for that. I mean, we are on lap 17 now out of 22, so I have to say, I think it would be very strange if he came in now at this point, unless he was just hoping with all his hope that maybe it'll dry up and he can, make that stop at the end for a different set of tires, possibly a set of full wets or a set of slicks, as the case might be. However, it does seem that the conditions are going to remain the same as Daniel Thomas now becomes the next to pit at the end of lap 17, so he'll have just a 5-lap stint to run on whatever tires he's picking at the end here. I would imagine it is going to be another set of intermediates, and it is indeed another set of intermediates that go in the car for Daniel Thomas. That's going to promote Autosport up into 12th position. It's going to be very close between the two of them at pit exit, but Autosport carrying that speed out of turn 1 is going to have the momentum through turn 2 and into the 3-4-5 complex as they get onto the DRS straight. So Autosport into 12th position ahead of Daniel Thomas with more boost remaining still as well too. They're actually... Oh man, this is actually a really great race for Autosport. They're less than 3 seconds behind a points-paying position. This is so close for Autosport here. I'm sure everybody is going to be rooting for Autosport. Also, we're pointing out Jake Thompson, as close as Autosport is to picking up their first points of the season, Jake Thompson's even closer. He is right up to the back of Franco Inceralde. Neither of them have any boost remaining, though, and there's no DRS. So it's going to take something really special, I think, here for Jake Thompson to get into the points. However, Autosport, with some clever boost usage, they could find themselves into the points as Cordier now pits from 3rd.
Yeah, indeed. I've been keeping an eye on that quite closely to see how Autosport are going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of leave it to the very, very last. But where's Cordier going to reappear? Is that going to put him behind Autosport? No, he should come out ahead of them. He jumps out in... That's 9th? Yes, just behind Navarro as he dumps quite a bit of battery to get back ahead of Jose Luis Navarro. But, yeah, Inceralde's got to be careful. That ever-looming car of Jake Thompson is ready to do something about it. And again, looking at the lap times, Autosport took nearly a full second out of Jake Thompson. So that car is really on the move now. As Peterman is still extended his lead 2.5 seconds. He hasn't, nearly 3 seconds. I don't think he's actually touched his boost button for 2/3 of the race, so not 3/4 of the race, since he was being challenged early on. He can pretty much just kind of dump the battery. You can just take it out and throw it out of the car at this rate, as Nick Morales has got no boost to use anyway. And so Cesar Navarro in 3rd position, 5.7 behind the top 2. Cabanez Cabanez has a fairly significant amount of boost left to use. Navarro has none, so yeah, Cabanez could steal the last podium spot in the final 3 laps. And again, keep an eye on the lap times. Saito's got full battery to use. Goodness me, he can pretty much dump that battery in the last couple of laps and really pull away from Nicholas Coleman. So he's already 1.7 ahead of him, and Coleman's still got a fair amount of battery to use. But and there we go. Just we're talking about boost usage. Autosport's just dumped the battery on that back straight heading into Lake Om. So that's closed that gap down to between himself and Jake Thompson to 0.8 of a second, who himself is 0.8 behind Inceralde. It's going to be a right old scrap for that last podium, for that last points paying position.
Yeah, I tell you, Daniel Thomas as well too. We know a very quick manager. He was at one point in the season a championship contender, just kind of lacking the consistency that we now see from the current leaders of the championship. But we do know Daniel Thomas is an extremely quick manager. He really knows this game very well. He does have a little bit of boost still remaining. And dare I say, he's actually closing up to the back of Autosport even quicker than Autosport was closing up to the back of Jake Thompson. Now, Daniel Thomas in the green car here is also on the freshest tires, or on fresher tires compared to Autosport as well too, having run the two-stop strategy. So we've just started the penultimate lap of this race here in Belgium. It is still falling with rain. It is only 3.0 millimeters of water on the circuit, so it hasn't changed a massive amount. It was 2.0 or thereabouts, I think, when the race was starting. So it's only increased by about 1 millimeter over the course of the 21 and a bit laps that we've 20 and a bit laps that we've completed so far in this race. So it's not played as major of a role as some might have hoped or expected or something like that, but it does seem now that Franco Incerralde is starting to pull away. There's the boost usage from Daniel Thomas. I believe that was what's left as they make their way into the high-speed left-hander. It's so close, and they've done it. Daniel Thomas has done it. He's overtaken Autosport, pushed them down into 13th position. It was looking so good for Autosport, but now that they've drained their boost, I don't think they're going to be able to make it into the points. But again, I have to say, improvements from Autosport. They are getting better and better at playing this game, picking their strategies, all those kinds of things. We've seen enormous amounts of improvements from them. If you go back and watch the first race in Australia, it is laughable compared to the performance that they're putting in here today. They were within 2 seconds of a points-paying position right at the end of the race. I do apologize. I've been so focused on that. We do need to focus, though, on Chandler Seitze and Nicolas Coleman. The French manager Coleman deploying some boost, but as Chris mentioned earlier, Chandler Seitze with lots of boost still remaining. He's only just now getting it down to 50%, so I think Nicolas Coleman sort of realizing that is a bit of a moot point. Not really much point in doing that, if only to defend from Cordier, really, is the main reason. We do see Peter Mann now deploying some boost, though, which makes sense because it is the final lap. We do see Johan Dimier moving very slowly. He's had some sort of failure, and he's actually retired. I think that's actually our first retirement of the season. Unfortunate to see he's probably not attending. For those that may have forgotten, Dimier did recently have a new child born into this world, so I'm sure he's been very busy with that. So, but it is going to be Peter Mann, the championship leader, who crosses the line first, only 4.5 seconds ahead of Nicolas Morales, and then another 5.4 seconds down to Cesar Navarro. Felix Cabanes actually pressuring Navarro, though, for that final podium position. And then it's actually going to be two Spaniards in the top 5 as Nicolas Carrasco joins Felix Cabanes. Chandler Seitze gets a solid points finish, though, picking up 8 championship points for him. And look at that, Incerralde, Thomas, and Thompson all crossing the line in formation. Almost nothing between them. Autosport, again, not that far off. Less than 3 seconds. Less than 3 seconds behind a points-paying position. That is, again, huge improvement for the Autosport team. So I have to congratulate them on that one, because that is a solid result. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, Chris. This is a tough league to score points in. Never mind, winning or podiums or any of that stuff. These are among the best of the best that IGP has to offer.
Yeah, it's actually very easy to assume, it's a simple thing. You're not driving anything. You're just, telling people what to do. Well, consider this. Morales, before this round, was third in the championship, right with Nicolas Navarro as well. Now, the last lap look at the last lap of the few drivers at the top of the field. Morales was a good 3 seconds off the top of the field. It's down to consistency and strategy and timing as well. Now, as mentioned, it is down to, a lot of it is down to the upgrades that they have put in, the resets they put into the car. But even if you go back right to the beginning, when everything was a level playing field, it was still down to really strategic timing. And a lot of people just didn't give up either. You mentioning Autosport, they were lapped, I think, in the early races.
Yeah.
And look at them now, within touching distance of scoring a point. So, but this is not simple. The concept might be simple. It may be open to anybody to get into, sure. But to be amongst the regular top point scorers, as Peter Mann is doing, It is not a easy process whatsoever. So, congratulations to all of our competitors. Let's be quite frank. It's a shame that Demio's car retired with suspension failure. But as is, the real life sport can be that cruel as well. But it's not easy to be at this kind of level. So congratulations to everybody that's taken part, and especially to our point scorers, and in particular, once again, to Peter Mann for taking another win.
Yep, and it is another win for Peter Mann. It was closer this time compared to some of the races that we've seen as of recently. In Europe, for example, over 10 seconds down to Valentin Cordier, who finished in second position. So much, much closer than that this time. And Peter Mann did have the advantage of starting on pole, which he did not have last time. In Europe, it was more of a matter of strategy. Starting that race on the softs instead of the super softs, I think, is really what contributed to his win, and that over 10-second gap that he had as well, too. We are going to put up the new results after that race in just a moment here. I'm just waiting for the results to finalize and everything, but I mean, really, really impressive stuff. Great to see the way that Autosport has moved forward. Let's see. I'm curious. I can at least tell you guys about whether or not. So Jake Thompson has not moved ahead of Autosport yet. So despite that 11th place finish for Jake Thompson, that's still not quite enough on countback to move them ahead of Autosport. Again, both of those teams yet to score any points. So to determine who's 15th and who's 16th in that battle, it comes down to finishing positions and who's finished in 11th more and all that kind of stuff. So Autosport are still ahead of Jake Thompson after that most recent race. It's taken a while for this to update, so I'm just going to go ahead and show the standings. So it is now Peter Mann sitting on 212 points. Nicholas Navarro, Cesar Navarro, now sitting on 164 points after that race, after unfortunately not managing to really challenge Peter Mann. So it is just 4 points between Navarro and Morales for that second place position. Nicholas Carrasco with another top 5 finish out there today. He's been one of the most consistent managers, I have to say. Shout out to Nicholas Carrasco. He's averaged 10 points per race, because that's of course round 12 that we just completed, and he's got 120 points, so he's averaging 5th place, which is very, very good. Again, very, very good for this league. But yeah, Navarro and Morales, only 4 points between the two of them. However, it is now 48 points between Peter Mann and Cesar Navarro. So essentially, Cesar would need to get 2 race victories, and Peter Mann would have to not score any points at all at this stage. And we do only have 5 races remaining. I was doing my best about remaining optimistic about this championship remaining open right until the end, but Chris, even for someone who doesn't necessarily know iGP Manager, anybody that knows motorsport knows that a 48-point gap with only five races remaining, that's a tough thing to overcome.
Just a little bit. He would need to go on vacation and completely ignore iGP Manager for that period of time, right. for that to really kind of go his way. However, stranger things have happened. So, yeah. I mean, what can we say that hasn't already been said? Peter Mann just doing a brilliant job with the R&D he's put into place, the strategy that he's deploying. But again, whilst this may well be the best, whilst this may be, this seem like a difficult thing to wrap your head around, I would implore anybody to give it a try. It's definitely worth. If this type of management game is really your thing, please do. You may have lunatics like me and Justin shouting about your on-track antics. You never know where it may lead, what the future lies for an iGP Manager. It's made it to this kind of broadcast stage, so it's certainly viable, and you may well see your own name on that leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly right. And we do have things coming to iGP Manager as well, too, for those that are new to it. iGP Manager has been around for years and years and years and years, but we are still working on it, still improving things, still adding new features. We do have the quick race feature that is coming later on this year. That should be coming soon. parentheses, soon, or whatever you want to say, soon, registered trademark, but that will be coming in the future. So, and basically that'll allow you to race anytime, anywhere. As it stands right now, you got to race when your league races, but the quick races is going to change all of that. It's going to make it so that you can have a quick little race with strangers or friends of yours and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just like Chris said, if you haven't already, give it a shot. It's a quick download. It's free to play as well too. You can play it on your phone, you can play it on your browser, you can play it on your tablet, you can play it through a number of different devices, and yeah, it's free to try out as well too. So that is going to do it though for the broadcast for round 12 of this Apex Online Racing IGP Manager League. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Chris, for joining me.
My pleasure.
And we will see you next time for round 13. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.